recent vibe coding development experience really makes me want to give up GSD workflow. Although I was also a contributor to this project before, I think I have enough reason to give up on him now. If you still don't know what GSD is, it is a lightweight AI development workflow originally created for Claude Code. It now supports mainstream AI development tools like Codex, Fu, Gemini, CLI, and Anti-Gravity. I gave up on it for two main reasons. It feels heavy and it's slow. Now, let me talk about my current situation. I have introduced this workflow into all 9 of my projects. Initially, it performed quite well. But lately, the slowness has become unbearable. About a month ago, I integrated it into my development workflow, replacing the superpowers workflow I had been using. What's the issue with it? Maybe you output 100,000 tokens. 90,000 of them are just documentation. Even with a $200 monthly subscription, I can live with that cost. The excess portion, but it's just so slow. Fin shit, you know? If you have used it, you may know it is during the planning phase that during the planning phase, it generates he will use sub-agents to perform task planning. A planner will be created. After the planner's process is completed, it will then create a sub-agent called a checker. This checker will then go on to inspect the planner, generate that plan. Then he will discover some issues. If there are any problems, he will generate a new planner again. Then at this stage, the version I am currently using, at this stage, there will be at most 2 rounds or after 2 rounds. If the plan he generates still has issues, he will stop and then ask whether to force, continue, or to continue fixing. So I will develop a feature because it is like this. Its development function is divided into 2 parts. One part is the milestone. It's relatively large. It's about having many features. It could be a major milestone that combines many features together. Another aspect is the rapid development mode. Compared to using the superpowers workflow, or completely without any workflow, manage documents yourself, or provide context to design some prompts, GSD workflow. Its overall completion progress is very slow for the same feature. If you do not use GSD and instead use the built-in plan mode, then write a plan, then go implement it. It might take 20 minutes or maybe just over 10 minutes to get it done if you use superpowers. First, brainstorm if you were to do that set. It might take about 30 to 40 minutes. But with GSD, it's basically 50 minutes. Around 50 minutes, most of that time is spent on processing those so-called context engineering pile of documents. Why did I switch from superpowers to this workflow? The issue with superpowers is that during the brainstorming phase, many of the constraints I provided, he tends to forget later on. It's possible that I mentioned a point earlier, which is a feature I wanted, but due to contextual issues, it might have been discarded, or rather, point is not following instructions. Well, he didn't do it. And as for GSD, it manages these requirements through documentation, and it has audits before each of its milestones to ensure that your constraints are ultimately fully realized. But there is actually a problem with this, which is, previously, for example, I encountered some features ultimately were not implemented, so I would just directly collect the points that have not been implemented, then start a new session to have it executed. In that case, the previous workflow, for example, it might take about 20 to 30 minutes to complete, then proceed with E2E. Go ahead and do this end-to-end test. Then I found that some points did not meet expectations. I would say that, well, gather these points, then have him redo it. It'll probably take about a few minutes or around 10 minutes. So overall, it adds up to about 30 to 40 minutes and you can get it done. So using this workflow is precisely for implement those previous constraints. He spent a lot of time on the documentation, and even so, ultimately, what came out was, sometimes he still has not done it well, because this is a matter of the model's capability. There are some points he still has not completed. At that point, you still need to do the repair, whether you directly prompt it or not, or use its quick command. And the most frustrating point is it achieves a milestone. It is divided into many phases, which is divided into many stages, and each stage has many waves in its implementation. Wave means a wave. He will break it down into many waves and then tackle them one wave at a time. Each wave will have its own planner, meaning he will make a plan for each one, then plan the review. Then there are many processes, and most of the time is spent on documentation. For example, if I were to use that method just now, it might take about 30 to 40 minutes. It's about getting a feature done right. If I were to use GSD for it, it might take just a few hours. Really, no exaggeration at all. He might really take several hours to finish it, and the outcome isn't entirely satisfactory. There are still many small details that need to be adjusted. As for GSD, if you haven't been exposed to any workflow and you're just starting to use this Codex or Claude Code, I recommend you begin by using superpowers first. Then try using GSD or other Speckits. What the heck? But after using it for so long, I found that Theo was right. I watched Theo's video earlier. I found his codex or that Claude Code. Nothing fancy. There's only one front-end development skill. It's the front-end skill from Anthropic, nothing else. No MCP either. Just one skill, nothing else. Now, I actually think his approach might be right, because as the model's capabilities improve, actually these context engineering techniques aren't really necessary. If the model wants to develop a feature, if you use the current context engineering approach to do it, it might first use commands, search for some content within the documents. But in reality, my view is that the code, it is the document. This is essentially the same as how Convex's code is the database. He can simply search for the relevant code directly, and then understand how it is organized without needing to refer to those documents at all, especially as the model's capabilities continue to grow stronger. When the context window becomes larger and larger, to be honest, those documents are pretty much useless, and they might even be misleading. Because, well, it's not perfect either. He's also iterating daily and releasing new versions. It might miss a lot of things. For example, when I use it in Codex, it always completes a phase, leaving behind many interim documentation files. If you're not careful when submitting and creating pull requests, files may be discarded by you. Then the content in the document is outdated. It will affect the model's judgment. Instead, it might mislead the model point. It's also quite crucial. It actually feels a bit like being in a heroin den. It's like choosing to return to the basic. Actually, when you use it to the end, you realize that in the end, you don't need anything at all. Just use the built-in plan mode, and directly inputting the prompt is the best way, fast and accurate. If you are very familiar with your project, you can directly tell the AI in the context what it needs. It can help you implement the functionality. No need to handle those heavy workflows. There's still a lot more. I have heard many say that this superpowers is suitable for small projects, and then GSD is suitable for large projects. But actually, how should I put it? I don't see it that way. As I mentioned earlier, when he goes to the model to retrieve documents and code, no matter what workflow you use, he will search through your code repository, then understand your code, then proceed with feature development. Introducing this workflow into large projects, might not be ideal, because the current mainstream context window is the largest for production-level development models, basically up to 1M context. So 1M context, if your code expands, it retrieves the code base itself, loading it into its own context window, already consumes a significant amount of input. If you introduce another workflow that heavily relies on document comparison like this, it will take those parts from the document and cram them into the context window as well. In that case, it will lead to. He also mentioned here the corruption of context. That is to say, when your context window is very large, the quality of the model's output will decline. This issue. Therefore, the best organizational approach usage is install nothing. Also install fewer MCPs. Then also install fewer skills. What do you need to do? You have already written it all out in the initial prompt stage. It's not about you specifying it. Which part of the code should be changed, which section of the code should be modified. Rather, it is about clearly describing your requirements while providing them to the AI. The context needed to complete this feature, just like you would develop it yourself. For example, then you need to connect to the backend database to take a look. Then you might let him use it. CLI2 might write in the prompt. For example, if you write in the prompt, you may need to use the comeback CLI or the versal CLI. Then it will use these tools based on this information instead of through a massive, that's me, using the GSD workflow. You don't write anything. You just send one hello in the past. His context window already accounted for 20%. If you are using a 200K context, it's basically 20% already. 1 trillion would be better, but the problem is... Oh, right, there's another point. That is, when you initialize a project, after you initialize a project with GSD, it will stuff a bunch of crap into your AGENTSMD or CLAUDEMD. If this was my original a GENTSTMD, then after initialization is complete, it will be below this. It will be below this. You know. Oh, I haven't drawn enough yet. At least 3 more need to be copied below. He will stop some of his things. That is GSDSD. He will stuff a bunch of these things and then use them to guide the model. I haven't looked at them specifically. It should just be some guidance on certain matters. Then it will occupy a large amount of this context space. Because of this file, AGENTSMD file is every time, even when your tools are called. So for example, he's working over here. After finishing working, get an output. Wait a moment. He is working here. Then stop, right. Then you type some more here. You type another one here. Then send it. After sending it, a GENTSMD file will then be inserted into this context window, meaning you are inserting a bunch of these GSD files each time. Your context window will quickly become full. Then this leads to another issue, which is that it was originally designed to address the problem of context window corruption, where quality degradation is observed when there are too many context windows. So now the issue is, even if he uses many sub-agents, he will quickly fill up the context window. In that case, then my solution is to directly delete this whole bunch of stuff. Just discard it actually isn't very useful. is your AGENTSMD. It must be based on the actual situations you encounter during development and gradually supplemented bit by bit rather than directly having it generate. Many people use Claude Code. Just use that init command to generate this CLAUDEMD usage is incorrect. It will only interfere with your context and then make your generation quality worse. The best practice is still to leave it blank initially and then fill it in when you encounter issues. For example, a model initially didn't notice that you started the development server, did not notice you enabled the dev server. Then it will try to start this dev server. So you need to write in this AGENTSMD the corresponding constraints. For example, when the development server is already running, don't start it again, just use that one directly. Or other. For example, performing type checking or that code style, right? This if he did not pay attention while doing it. You need to write these constraints in. Then best practices. You can go check out Theo's episode regarding this video about CLAUDEMD and AGENTSMD. It provides a quite comprehensive explanation overall after using it for so long. AI development tools. Now it feels like returning to the basics, just like when using AI tools at the very beginning. Maintaining some documents on my own. Design more specific and detailed prompts yourself. Although the process of solving this puzzle is quite agonizing, the final outcome is the best. It's just that, compared to you using various tasks, by designing prompts and planning yourself, the results are the best and it can save you a lot of tokens. You might just have a $20 monthly subscription or a $100 subscription. You probably don't handle many projects simultaneously. If you introduce such a heavy workflow again, it really wastes at least 70% of token. Especially before was Claude Code during the period when the quota calculation had bugs. I only used the code review feature, right? He now has a cross-phase, which is a cross-agent code review feature. Only perform a code review. With a 5-hour quota limit, already used up nearly 40%. This is still my $200 plan. You can think about it. If you're using the Pro version, it's already full to the brim. You just want to run a code review. You know what I mean? It's just so exaggerated. But if you haven't used it before and you have enough tokens, I still recommend you give it a try. You can get to know him, how he does context engineering. Actually, when you develop your own projects or collaborate in small team development, no need for particularly complex context engineering, just like what he used here. You might only need to absorb some very small parts of it, 10%, 20% of the concept. You can build your own ideas through them, or rather, and incorporate them into your development workflow. Finally, I hope everyone can find a workflow that suits you. Actually, the advantage of these open source workflows is you can learn some design concepts from them. Then I discuss some methods with AI. And then, in the end, what you actually use in your workflow is probably only about 20%. The truly useful part, the part that is useful to you. Because their design considers the overall need, they might aim to cover all aspects comprehensively. However, this is quite challenging to achieve in reality. This is also why there are many other various workflows. Superpowers, Speckit, and his OpenSpec. And then there is this Taskmaster. I also saw a particularly heavy one called Agentic before. Let me see if I can find it. Agente. Oh no, I remember it wrong. This is called agency. How should I put this? I feel like he wants to make it into this. It can no longer be called a one-person company. It's what you call a person. He wants to build a building. I feel. Do you know how many characters he has below? His approach represents a different philosophy. Our previous philosophy was based on context engineering, which is contextual engineering. His approach is based on role-playing. He has designed a vast array of roles, such as front-end engineers, back-end architects, and mobile development AI engineers. DevOps automation.
And what about senior development?
What optimization experts? Security engineering and embedded engineers. There are just so many. Look further down, and there are also Xiaohongshu experts. Zihu strategist, Bilibili content strategist. So many you can scroll down. Ridiculously many. Honestly, I feel like this could fill an entire office building. If you actually use it. I feel like even 100 million tokens of context might not be enough. But actually, it's more of a reference. For example, if you suddenly want to get into cross-border e-commerce, you might take a look at the prompts here, or design. You might want to try something like Xiaohongshu. You should also look at how the prompts inside it are designed. Then understand how the entire pipeline is executed is also a good direction. Rather than actually using it yourself, just stuffing these whole chunks directly into your workflow isn't really practical. That's also a problem. Now, I have many planning folders in many of my projects. They contain a lot of GSD workflow stuff. Actually, there's no need to remove them from Git. I might just uninstall this workflow first, because when using it, oh right, it's not just about adding to your agent SMD, it's packed with a lot of stuff. Before each time you send a message fits into your lower body. It also has many built-in skills. Although not all skills are crammed in, it will have a streamlined version. It will have simplifications. There will still be many skill inserted into your context. Let me take a quick look. Well, let me enlarge it a bit. You can check how many of these skill there are. All of these skills will be included in your following context. Let's just click on one randomly. For example, take debug. It has WKB. Although this 5 kilobytes, it only fills the metadata in its front matter. That's the metadata before the markdown format, but it also will all these combined. Every time there is a message, he stops it in. Every time he sends something, he stops it in. Then, let's take a look at it. It has many workflows and templates, and there are all sorts of hooks. He really just... It's slow and heavy, you know? But initially, the first thing that made me use one of his points was that he talked about not having that issue of losing constraint. I was really trying to figure out how to solve it at the time. The constraints mentioned earlier, the model later forgot, then the issue that was not implemented. So when I saw this work, sometimes I get quite excited. I want to give it a try, and for that reason, I even opened a PR and contributed code to it. It's time to say goodbye, GSD.